Well, good morning to all and welcome to this webinar presentation entitled No Challenge Too Hard, the Art and Practice of 21st Century Leadership. I am Dr. John Dentico and I'm honored to be your guide on this journey today. I hope you will find this presentation to be informative and enjoyable. More than that, I hope it makes you think about leadership in perhaps a different way. Now, before we start, I have to issue a warning. Some of what you're going to hear and see in this webinar you may already know. Some may be new to you, and some may very well contradict the more popular notions and ideas that surround the topic of leadership. All I ask is that you listen and watch with an open mind and compare what is presented here today to your everyday work life, what you see, what you feel, and what you experience each and every day. So let us begin. Imagine for a minute that you are driving down a superhighway in your brand new automobile, when without warning you hear a loud bang. Suddenly you realize that the loud noise was your right front tire, and yes, you have a flat. Undaunted by this little mishap in your life, you pull off at the next ramp and begin to search for someplace where you can get the wheel fixed. You drive for a time listening to the thump, thump, thump of your front tire on the road when out of nowhere appears a sign. The sign says, "Welcome to the Farm and Factory Wheel Repair Facility. If you don't see what you need, just ask. I'm sure we have it." "Great," you exclaim. "I'm saved." You pull in, parking in the middle of the lot, exit your car, and soon after an attendant approaches and asks, "How can I help?" "I have a flat tire. I've been driving on it for a while, and I may need a new wheel." You reply, "Have you got a wheel?" "Wait right here," says the attendant. 5 minutes pass and the attendant returns, rolling a large wheel towards your car. Confused, you realize the wheel is a great deal bigger than the one on your car. In fact, it looks to be a wheel designed to fit a covered wagon. Realizing this may be the only wheel facility within miles, you say in your most respectable tone, "Sorry, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it will fit my brand new car." "Thanks for your effort, but got anything else?" The attendant shrugs his shoulders and says, "Be right back." 10 minutes pass and the attendant returns, this time with a large rubber tire on a wooden spoked wheel. Remember the time you sat on your grandfather's or great-grandfather's knee while he showed you pictures of his youth? You realize that this wheel comes from a Ford Model T circa 1925. You look the attendant straight in the eye and say, "Well, it's a lot closer, but it will not fit on my new car. And secondly, if you were able to make it fit, I'm sure I'd crash. That tire was never made to go 65 miles an hour on a superhighway." And ladies and gentlemen, you'd be right. Driving your brand new automobile on a wheel made for a covered wagon or a 1925 Ford Model T would most likely spell disaster in a very short period of time. It seems obvious, doesn't it? Then can anyone tell me why every day we continue to run our 21st century organizations on models and ideas designed for yesterday's farms and factories? In the idea economy, whereas Peter Drucker has written the knowledge worker is the leading class, we remain at the mercy of industrial models. Doesn't this too spell disaster? Nowhere is this more evident than in the notions and the nature and practice of leadership. Consider this. Every 2 years, Development Dimensions International completes a global leadership forecast where upwards of 14,000 HR professionals and international leaders representing over 70 countries are surveyed. In 2008 and 2009, their findings reveal that leadership development was going nowhere fast, even though 75% of executives surveyed identified improving leadership talent as a top business priority. In 2011, DDI's findings revealed that despite spending billions of dollars on talent management initiatives, not much has changed. How can this be? Where are the leaders? Where is the leadership? As DDI's global forecast admits, say the word leadership and it means different things to different people, even though many are drawn to the notion of a positional or heroic leader. In 1978, James McGregor Burns, the the patriarch of leadership thought in America, wrote that the predominant leadership approach tends, often unconsciously, to be elitist. It projects heroic figures against the shadowy background of drab, powerless masses. I wonder how many of you looking in here today want to be associated with a notion of leadership that portrays the majority of people involved as drab and powerless. I wonder how many of you looking in here today, concerned with such issues as employee engagement, want to be associated with the notion of leadership that portrays the majority of people involved as drab and powerless. Been on the internet lately? Not a really drab and powerless place. You see, for too long, leadership has been portrayed as that indescribable set of traits fully owned by the leader, who sits at the top of the organization. In the factory mindset, whatever the leader does is leadership. All we have to do is make better leaders, follow their orders, and we too are saved. The fact is that the ideas and principles of leadership models built for industrial times are grossly limited and incongruent. For an interconnected, extremely aware society, enraptured with technology and information, surrounded by rapid, complex change, faced with infinitely difficult decisions, and who, at the core of its being, seeks purpose and meaning from the work it does. In this environment, the job of leaders is changing dramatically, as innovation, leadership, commitment, and learning at all levels of an organization are required. 21st century leadership must focus on melding a multitude of diverse talent and individual ability into collaborative, interdependent, and unified action capable of addressing the most complex and intractable issues and challenges we face. The challenge for all 21st century leaders is to create environments built on mutual trust and continuous learning, where participants in these leadership dynamics are fully engaged, derive meaning, take ownership and responsibility for the results, and are committed to do their best work each and every day. But I suspect my presentation today will disappoint some of you. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't. You see, if you have come here today hoping that I will pass on to you the secrets of a charismatic leader, well, sorry, you've come to the wrong place. You see, we've come to realize that leadership, as it has been described, has very little to do with charisma. While someone may very well be charismatic, the question is, can they be trusted? If you've come here today hoping I would provide you with a comprehensive list of certified 101 leadership traits, sorry, this isn't the place. The fact is that after more than 60 years of research, we have yet to list or describe a set of traits that, when found, will reveal a true leader every time. If you've come here today hoping that I might pass on to you the top 10 phrases that you can use to provide situationally induced 1-minute nudges to the willing members of the drab and powerless so that you can move more cheese or follow on any given day, wow, you really are in the wrong place. People have grown tired of being manipulated, and with a notion of leadership that celebrates inconsistency and presumes perfect knowledge on the part of the leader in this complex world in which we live. If you've come here today hoping that I will regale you with stories of the use of empowerment across this nation, guess what? Wrong again. There's little doubt that empowerment is seen as an ennobling concept. The problem is, it is so difficult to implement. I wonder how many of you remember empowerment's more mature sibling, delegation. Delegation was management's manna from heaven during the 70s and 80s. What we found out was that while senior managers would delegate responsibility for programs and necessary changes to others in the organization, they would oftentimes refrain from delegating the authority to carry out those responsibilities. In effect, they would create organizational advocates that were in reality toothless tigers. Consider this. We spend billions of dollars each year on talent management initiatives, on recruiting and retention formulas, on behavioral screening, with the expressed intention of hiring the best and the brightest, only to place them into an environment where those in charge must give them permission to use the power of their combined experience, education, and talent to do the job that they were hired to do. This is the human capital strategy for the 21st century. But look, don't take my word for it. Let's see what some of the greatest thought leaders in management and organization development have said about the nature and effect of empowerment. Chris Argyris, one of the forefathers of organizational learning, and considered by many to be the father of organizational learning, Professor Emeritus at Harvard, said this about empowerment in 1998. Despite all the best efforts that have gone into fostering empowerment, it remains much like the emperor's new clothes. We praise it loudly in public and ask ourselves privately why we can't see it. There has been no transformation in the workforce, and there has been no sweeping metamorphosis. For Argyris, the central empowerment issue focused on internal commitment, or more appropriately, employee engagement, garnered from the fundamental truth of human nature and psychology that the less power people truly have to shape their lives, the less commitment they will have. I hate the word empowerment and have never used it nor never will, said the Moses of management, Peter Drucker. As with Argyris, Drucker's concern centered on employee engagement. That is, the employee having internal commitment to the tasks at hand, not just external commitment in the form of accountability to some senior manager. And Charles Handy, renowned as one of the world's most prominent management thinkers, tells us that empowerment is inherently a contradictory idea. If power is bestowed, it can also be withdrawn, and therefore no power at all. It is at best benevolence, at worst manipulation. An individual has power only if it is their right to keep the power or to give it away. Instead, Handy offers us the concept of subsidiarity. Subsidiarity involves leaving power as close to the action as possible. Subsidiarity is not like empowerment, where somebody on high has given something away. Subsidiarity is a matter of seeing to it that power is where it properly belongs, in the complex diversity that is the real world. I wonder, how would a leader's attitude change, or framework for getting things done change, if he or she simply accepted the fact that the people who bring their talent, education, experience, and desire to achieve to work each and every day really have the power? That in the 21st century organization, the leader's job is to harness that contributory power in a way that melds it into a dynamic for change, developing internal commitment not only to their organization, but to themselves. And styles. If you're hung up on styles, on leader styles, let me assure you that the only style that truly matters is one within which leaders see themselves as initiating and facilitating an interlocking network of relationships where people work together to make real change.